Hey everyone, Micah with MovieMaker magazine here. I got a chance to talk to Erica Schmidt, who wrote the screenplay for Cyrano and originally adapted the play for stage. We really talked about her journey as a writer and leading up to this project, which was her first screenplay, and also collaborating with the mega band The National and creating music with them. I hope you guys enjoy. How do you feel like your writing has changed over time?
I think I'm getting more confident with it, I guess. I feel like the more that I do it every single day, the more it becomes um, a job,
Mm.
as opposed to a hobby, I guess. Because I was always very kind of shy about saying that I was a writer or writing, because I was a director first in my mind. And so like when I would adapt something, I wouldn't even say that I had adapted it necessarily. And my agent said to me, "You got to start saying, it's your cut of the play." And I felt really shy about that. But I feel like now I feel much more excited about it. And that, in a way, has kind of freed my mind to have more ideas about the stories I want to tell, which I feel really excited about.
Do you feel like the stories you like to tell now are completely different? Like in the past, like what were they like, and now when do you tend to gravitate towards?
Um, yeah, I mean, for example, I never would have ever written a screenplay of Cyrano ever,
Mm.
if Joe hadn't told me to or asked
Mm.
me to. I never would have done it. Because to me it was, ironically, it was about um, a kind of cinematic version of the play on stage, like, composed through by the National with almost like a cinematic score. And the songs, the way they functioned were almost, I mean, like we did the ballet through a glass window, to sort of feel, like letterboxed. So I never would have, written it. And in writing it, it really was like being hired to do a job for someone else to direct. And so that felt um, like work. Like I had to figure out how to take what it was that Joe had seen in the show that he had liked, and then also what he wanted from the original Rostand, and also make it for his vision, which was Baroque and very different from my vision of it on stage. And to be kind of, egoless in that, to fight for the things that I believed in, but then also to just recognize that it's his vision,
Mm.
um, so that was a tremendous learning experience, because also I didn't know the form, of a screenplay when I started. I'd never written one before, so that was also um, a big learning curve. And now I feel really excited about the form.
When collaborating with the National, I'm super curious about what you were looking to explore in the lyrics and the music.
Well, it took a while to get Aaron and Bryce on
Mm.
board. And Matt was much more kind of gung ho from the beginning. And he shared with me a file of like 4 hours of Aaron and Bryce's music. They write what they call sketches, which
Mm.
are like very brief, often repetitive themes. And they had this kind of dead letter box of all of this beautiful music that had never turned into national songs. Because when they write national songs, they send them to Matt, and then he either hears lyric and melody on it or he doesn't. And so these ones had never become songs. Um, Although you can argue it's a song even if it doesn't have lyric, I suppose. But he shared it with me, and so I put those tracks into my script, and I put them all the way through my script. And then Bryce came over to our house, and I pressed play like really nervously on his music while actors read the play aloud, and he was like, "Okay, we can do this." So then I took the tracks that I had, that were Aaron and Bryce's, and I put them to the what was the nose speech, which was gone because I'd cut the nose, what was the ballad, which is at the end of the refrain, I draw blood, which, I didn't know what we were going to do with, to the balcony scene, and to the end of the play, the last moment between Cyrano and Roxanne, and then in the war. It was really only 5 things. And I went to Matt and I said, these are the 5 songs. It'll just be 1 song per act. And this is what the music is. And this is what the content is based on the Rostand. And then he and I went back and forth about what we should change. Like what would be the change? You know, we weren't going to set Rostand's words to Bryce and Aaron's music. So how is he going to kind of change them? And the first one that he wrote was Madly, which is also no Cyrano at the end. And Madly went through so many incarnations. That's probably the most reworked song that we have. But it was just honestly, it was a really beautiful process. Like I felt very, very lucky to get to work with them in that way. And it's been years now, like 6 years, I guess, that we've been kind of going back and forth and sending emails and then meeting and then, you know, trying new things. And it was really about, in the beginning, all the songs were for Cyrano. And then it moved to being more about Christian and Roxanne. And then when we moved the show from Connecticut to New York, really everybody sang, like Marie had a song. So it kind of expanded into something much bigger, which was really a joy.
So when the play of Cyrano was first brought to you to adapt, what was your first thought? Like, what was your take on it, and how did that change throughout writing the screenplay?
Well, I brought the play to Michael Gennaro when he was at the Paper Mill Playhouse, because we were looking for something to work on as a musical, and I said that this was what I wanted to do. And so he commissioned me to adapt it. But then, I mean, that was 2004. And I didn't have a composer that I thought would be right for it, because again, I didn't want it to be a traditional musical. I wanted it to be like a play through composed. And so it sort of went in a desk drawer for about 10 years, really. And then he was at the Goodspeed, Michael Gennaro was, and he asked me to take it out of the desk drawer and start working on it. And that's when I started working on getting Matt and Aaron and Bryce to work on it with me. And Matt came on board pretty quickly and shared with me Aaron and Bryce's music, as I've told you. But initially, I mean, I love the Rostand play. I love it. But the sort of had 2 basic points of entry. One was that the character of Cyrano spends in the Rostand, he spends a lot of airtime talking about how ugly his nose is. And usually you have a handsome, wonderful actor put on a large prosthetic nose, and there's a conspiracy with the audience that we laugh because we know it's not true, it's fake, like Steve Martin and Roxanne, and you know. And I thought, well, what's underneath that? What would happen if he just never said what it is that he finds that makes him insecure? And so in the stage play, he said we cut the nose speech, and exactly once he said, "What woman could love me with this nose?" And so you would think there was nothing wrong with your nose. There's, you know, and then ideally you would kind of fill in whatever it was. But initially I hadn't thought of Peter playing the role. So just want to be clear that there was never a moment where it was like his size was going to be a swap for the nose. It was really kind of for anyone to play the role, and for the audience's imagination to decide what it was that he didn't like about himself. And then the other thing was, I had a kind of frustration with Roxanne. I felt like there's this, the Comédie Française did this incredibly popular, extremely successful version of Cyrano. And in the balcony scene, Christian and Cyrano wheel the balcony out from under her, and she floats in the sky, and like it's this beautiful background, and she's an angel, and it's really, really beautiful. And I just thought, well, that's the whole problem. Like, she doesn't even have legs to stand on. Like, she's just a fantasy of what they want. She never gets mad. And so I just really wanted to see what would happen if at the end, after she learns that she's been lied to and that she's married the wrong man, if she said, like, why didn't you tell me? What about the life we could have had? That we see the cost to this woman of his pride, that he never trusted her with the truth. So those were sort of my questions. And then this sort of bigger question of what could the songs be and how would they work? And then that was like where I started. And then with the film, a lot shifted because I had to go back to the Rastan because Joe really wanted the big first act. Did I tell you that already?
No.
Yeah, he wanted the first act to be in the theater and to have kind of all the pageantry and that we meet society. And then he wanted to move through the play to the more distilled version, which is what I had done on stage. So that final act in the convent is basically as it was on stage, but the first act is completely different. So I had to figure out a way to keep what he had liked, keep the intimacy, make sure that it made sense, that it was going into Matt's lyrics in this kind of high style Baroque world. Like, how could I make my language work between what Joe wanted, which is, pretty British, into what Matt was writing, into what I had done, my own initial impulses about it, which Joe had liked, so it was a real juggling act and kind of trying to figure out how to serve all these different things at the same time and keep the tone consistent.